Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Matthew Lawrence Scigousky, your expert on unlocking, developing, and using assets derived through challenge, struggle, and adversity in life. And today I'm going to go a little bit off script, and I'm going to actually talk about a topic that I get asked about all the time. And it's basically, how did you get into medical device sales? Because I've been a medical device rep for the last 29 years. And just to give you a little bit of context on my experience and performance, I've worked for companies such as Stryker and Merit Medical. I spent about 17 years between those two companies. I worked for a few other companies in between, and then for the last 3 years, I've been working for a company in the structural heart space, specializing in closure. Over a period of time of almost 30 years now, I've won 13 President's Clubs. I've been a #1 rep 4 different times. I've been a Rookie of the Year a couple different times. And then I have achieved or exceeded quota 85% of the time over that time frame. Now, to give you an idea of income-wise, because people who want to get into this usually hear that it's pretty lucrative, I have averaged, well, I'll tell you what I did my very first year, because I broke into the industry when I was 23 years old when I broke in, and I worked for a company called Applied Medical. I made a little over $80,000 my very first year, and this was in the early, this was kind of in the mid 90s. So over this entire time frame, though, of almost 30 years, I've averaged on the low end about $250,000 a year, and on the high end, a little over $500,000 a year. So it just gives you an idea of what the income potential can be, at least what it's been for me. And I will tell you, I actually know reps who've made way, way more than that. So the big question, though, is how do you break in? And, before I answer that question, what I would want to do is really, I think you got to answer a question for yourself. And it's why do you want to? Like, what's the real reason? Because if it's just money and that's all you're really after, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I think you have to have a bigger purpose in why you really want to do something. Money is an important component, but it shouldn't be the only component. And I have learned my lesson in this business that if it is the driving component, it usually doesn't always work out to the best. Because I've left a really good job before just for money, and it didn't work out. But I can get more into that kind of as we go through this. So I think what's important is you need to know what your why is, but I'm going to tell you what my why has been and what it was when I got in. So this story goes all the way back to when I was basically a junior in high school, and my stepbrother, best friend at the time, had been best friends for about 25 years. His uncle was in the industry, and we were at his house one day. I was looking in his office, and I saw all these surgical instruments sitting on his desk, and I asked him, like, what is all this stuff? And, they're shiny, and I was fascinated. And he's like, well, he's like, this is what I do. I sell surgical products for open heart surgery. It's called a cabbage procedure. And I was like, oh, how do you do that? And how make this hospital buys them? He's like, no, well, actually, no, I go into the surgeries, I demonstrate how the products are used, actually instruct during the cases. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're in there actually showing them what to do, how to use it, and then they're buying these products from you. And I thought that was literally the coolest thing I'd ever heard of. So that kind of got the fire, the spark inside of me. And from that moment on, I was just like, wow, this is a really interesting thing. And then, the other connection to that was, he had a really nice house, had a nice car, had a Rolex on his wrist, and, seemed like he lived a really good life. So I said, okay, this is something I'm definitely interested in doing. And so the other important aspects of it, though, that I will tell you, or things that in consideration that were important to me, is what I noticed is, you had the independence of working out of your house. I never wanted to work in an office. I've never felt like, I don't like feeling confined. I love the idea of the freedom of not having to go to an office, that you run a territory like a business. You control your income based on your performance. You're selling products that help people, And that's been a big, big deal for me. I love helping people, and I'm doing it in a really amazing way now. But that was one of the things that was incredibly appealing was I get to sell products that can make a positive impact, help improve somebody's life, potentially save somebody's life, and then on top of it, if I do really well, I can make a really amazing income as well. So that was a huge driving force. I had an overall interest in the space, and then really for me, the other thing was the way I grew up, my folks struggled. My mom worked in retail. My parents got married when they were in high school, senior in high schools, and my mom was pregnant with me when she was a senior in high school. My dad worked at a Pepperidge farm mill, and my parents struggled. One of the things I'll tell you though is that we never lacked. There was always food on the table, and there was always a roof over my head, but I had to learn very quickly in life that if there were things that I really wanted outside of that I was going to have to figure out ways to do it. And so it was, very appealing to me that, wow, I could really live like a really, a life that, I didn't necessarily grow up with, which was just being able to have a lot of financial freedom. So let me give you, I guess the next question really becomes is, all right, well, okay, that's really cool. That's when I was interested, but it wasn't until I became committed to this that I can really talk about how I got into the business. So once I was interested and I went through all those things, I made a decision about what I wanted to do when I was a senior in high school. And my decision was I'm going to become a medical device sales rep. And from that moment on, everything that I did had to line up with what it was going to take to do that. So I did a lot of research to understand what was required. I was fortunate. I had a resource and someone who was in the business so I could ask questions. The other thing is that, I just kind of made a list of all the things that I had to do. And obviously for getting a college degree is one of those things if you want to break into this industry. It's not that it's a must have, but it's definitely one of those things where it's certainly going to help, and probably I would say it's like one of those 95% requirements that's something you're going to want to do. So college degree, preferably something in business, communications, marketing. The other thing is you're going to have to figure out how to get, if you don't, and I'm in sales right now, you're going to have to get some sales experience. So one of the things that I did in order to get that experience was I actually worked at United Parcel Service. I was able to find an internship, paid internship in the summers in the sales department where I did outside B2B sales. I did it for 3 summers. Great thing about that was I got sales experience, but I also met my internship requirement in college and I got paid. Made pretty good money, anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000 over the summer. So it was a really, really good gig. My first job outside of college actually this is actually kind of a funny story. So I did all the things that were necessary, college degree, got the internship, but there's very few companies that are going to take a shot at you right out of school to be a full-fledged territory manager. But that doesn't mean that there's not ways of getting that done. So I realized quickly, like, okay, I'm going to have to do something in sales, outside of once I graduate. So I took a job selling office products. I lasted 3 days because I absolutely couldn't stand it. It was one of those jobs where I had to go in the office. You had to be there in the morning. You had to be there at the end of the day. I had no interest in the products whatsoever. And I just was like, you know what? No, this isn't for me. So I waited tables for 6 months. I focused on doing interviews. I interviewed with a couple medical companies. Nothing really progressed. And then I got a shot selling advertising space in Chicago. And I realized, okay, this is going to be one of my breaks. So I sold ad space for a year and I did really well on it and I leveraged it and I used it as a stepping stone. And my point being is that kind of you're in a position, sometimes we need to use those jobs as stepping stones to get to where we want to go. And that's what I was able to do with this. So now I've got some experience. I leveraged it to get interviews in the medical device space. I will be honest, I got turned down a lot, but you're going to have to be resilient, determined, and persistent. Those are three assets that, that I've done talks about these, but those are the three assets that are really kind of come into play. There are a few other different avenues as far as like maybe potentially becoming an ASR, associate sales rep, breaking in as a technician if you have a clinical background, being clinical support. But this is about being a medical device sales rep. Those can all lead to it. I wanted to go right in and just be a rep right from the start. So the goal is to go ahead and land that interview. And I got my opportunity, and I landed the interview with the company that ended up being the first company I worked for, Applied Medical. But after you do that, now what? So let me tell you exactly, this is basically what I would recommend, and this is what I did. And if you get that shot with the interview, these are going to be the things that are really important. I'm going to tell you what to do and what not to do. So first thing is, do your homework. The first question you are going to be asked by a hiring manager is, tell me what you know about the company and why do you want to work here? Now, I will tell you, 29 years in this business, I have interviewed a lot of people, and it shocks me at the number who have an answer of, well, I'm just would love, this seems like a great thing to do. Don't know much about the company. There's just no substance there. So if your answer is something like that, and you don't have anything where it shows that you did some preparation and really like know why you're sitting in front of that person, you're done. Just forget about it. So my point here is, make sure to do some research, understand what this company does exactly, the history of the company, the mission, what they all have a mission statement. Know your why, okay? Your why is incredibly important, and you're going to get asked about it. So I'm going to tell you exactly what my why was and actually has been still to this day. So I love selling. There is no better feeling than selling products that help people, and I want to align myself with a company that believes this to the core so I can be a part of it and I can contribute at an extremely high level. That essentially is my why. And that's a great answer that you would want to, if that is what your answer is, I'm not saying use that word for word. I'm just telling you that's an answer that has substance to it, and it's gonna resonate with the person that you're talking to who's interviewing you. The goal of the first interview is to make a strong impression. So the whole idea here is we want the hiring manager to bring us back. So outside of that first question in your interview, it's really going to be about just wanting to get to know who you are. But if you don't have that first question down and have a really, really good answer, you can sometimes just do yourself in before it goes any further. I'll say that just be yourself as well. Don't try and be anybody else. Don't try and be me. Be yourself. Just embrace the awesomeness that you are. I mean, everybody is unique and special, and just embrace who you are. And I think when you can do that, that will definitely shine through. Always close. So this is one of the things that's really important, is that let the manager know or the hiring person know that you want this position. And I talk a lot about asking. It's an asset, the art of asking. You have to ask for the things that you want, and if they don't know you want it, don't assume just because you showed up in the interview they think you want the job. Because like I said, there's a lot of people that are interested in things, but there's not a lot of people who are committed. And so one of the things that you can do to convince that person that's interviewing you is, hey, I'm committed. I want this position. I'm committed to seeing it through, and I'm going to want, I want your support moving through the different levels. The other thing that I will tell you is that with these particular jobs, at least in medical device industry, it can vary, but usually there's going to be more than one or two rounds generally. I'd say it can range anywhere between 3 rounds of interviews all the way up to as many as 5, maybe even more. I will tell you that my first job with Applied, when I broke in, it was three interviews, And then I went to a final interview and I had to go through a gauntlet of 6 people all in a row. And it was an all day thing. But I've also been, I think in today's day and age where we have Zoom and we have ways of communicating, a lot of times it might be, talk on the phone, one face to face, and then you might be interviewing with VP level after that, and that might just be Zoom. And if those go really well, that could be it. So it just kind of depends, but just be prepared, understand what the process is, ask what it is, because there's going to be a different preparation for each one of those levels. So let's say you get through round 1 and that's the mission. It's just to do what it takes to get to the second round, make a strong impression. You want that hiring manager to be like, hey, this is somebody I really want to take a look at further, because that is what round 2 is all about. That's where they're going to want to dig deeper and understand, more about, can this person really do this position and do it well? So I'll give you a few more little tidbits of kind of foundational things that you're going to want to make sure you do. Be on time. Actually, be 15 minutes early. I have a motto. My motto is, if I'm 15 minutes early, I'm on time. If I'm on time, I'm late. And if I'm late, there's probably no reason to show up. And make that your standard. It's important. It shows that you are organized, that it's important to you. And these little things can make a big difference. Dress professionally, no casual. What I will tell you is when I broke in with Stryker after applied, there was a setup they used to do, and they would actually say, hey, you don't have to wear your tie if you don't want to. You could take it off, and if you did, usually you were done. You want to make sure that you dress nice. Always be overdressed, not underdressed. It doesn't matter if you show up and the manager's got a coat on, but like a polo shirt or just a dress shirt and no tie. I just say, just make sure you have, I don't care if it's 100 degrees outside, wear a suit, ladies, wear a business suit. Just never assume that casual is okay. You just want to make sure that you dress to impress. Your resume, clean, straight to the point, have multiple copies with you. I have always had a brag book, have added to it over the years. Sometimes it comes into play, but it is good to be prepared with something. So, if you're younger, which I think a lot of people watching this video are probably going to be younger, whether you're coming out of college or maybe even a year or 2 out, your brag book can be all kinds of different accomplishments. It's just, it's showing a progression. So start putting one together, and as you do things over the years, that'll grow. So as far as preparation beyond these things, I will tell you that going above and beyond really makes a difference. One of the things that I have done is that I like to have a complete understanding of what the company does and where the market is in relation to the products that I'm going to be selling. And so how do you get that information? Obviously, so back when I broke into the business, there was no internet. I mean, it was like in its infancy. There wasn't going on Google and typing stuff in. If you wanted to do research, you went to the library or you had to ask around and find people that you could talk to, and that was it. So it's changed a lot now. I mean, now you can basically go online, but what I would recommend doing, get on LinkedIn, look around for other people who work at the company, especially in the sales, and send messages, but do it tactfully and be respectful. Don't just assume because you send someone a message that, that they're obligated to answer you or that you're entitled for that. Just be very gracious for anybody's time. What I'll tell you though, is if you do it, there's probably a good chance you might actually get somebody who responds, who's willing to talk to you. And the whole idea is that if you can gain a perspective from somebody who's working in there, you'll get inside intel. What's this position like? What are some of the things I should do, not do? It's also a great way, let the hiring manager know, hey, I talked to so-and-so. And they may say, well, how'd you do that? Well, I looked them up and called them or called her. It shows initiative, and those are the types of and ambition. Those are things that a hiring manager is looking for. 3069 business plan. This is probably going to come up. It doesn't come up all the time, but it's probably going to come up in the latter stages. So round 2, we're digging deeper. That's probably the moment when a hiring manager is going to say, okay, well, if on the next round, I'd like to bring you back. I'd love to see you put a business plan together. Now, a lot of people are probably going to be like, if you've never done one before, or you're thinking, well, how am I supposed to put a business plan together for something I've never sold? The thing is that a business plan just shows, it's going to show how creative you are. It's going to show that, hey, like this person can actually think before they actually, are in here and doing the job. And a lot of times in sales, I mean, it's about being creative. It's about using your imagination. Hey, here's a challenge. Are you going to overcome it or not? That's really what they're looking for, is just to see what you're going to do. So what I would recommend is, there are all kinds of templates online, or you can ask around, see if you have a friend. I'm going to offer you something up at the end of this, as far as business plan template I've used, and I'd be happy to actually send it to you. But we'll talk about that towards the end of this video. Once you get towards the end of the process here, so let's say we're in round 3, maybe round 4 is the final interview. You get there, you're either the top pick or you're one of 2. And so, like, this is essentially, there's a very good chance it potentially becomes your job to lose. And what I will recommend to you, because I've seen this happen, is don't just assume that you just have to show up for a last interview and oh, it's just a done deal. I just have to say hi to somebody. Do not take your foot off the gas. Make the same preparations. Be ready to rock and roll on that final interview. You want to impress that final person just as much as you impress the hiring manager on the first interview. That's why they brought you there. And guess what? You don't want to make them look bad, but it happens. I've seen people who just kind of made the assumption, didn't come in prepared, kind of flopped, and guess what? All that hard work, they're done. Didn't work. And they end up not moving forward. So I don't want to see that happen for you. Other couple things, just make sure that you're closing every single person simply by asking for the job, asking for their support along the way. You've made it all the way in, you get to that final interview, you close. Congratulations on landing your first job in the medical device industry as a sales rep. It's a pretty awesome place to be. I will tell you, I've felt very fortunate to have worked in this area for as long as I have. Not a lot of people do, but it's been an amazing ride for me, and I still enjoy doing it. So a couple other little kind of tidbits of things is, if it doesn't work out the first time, don't get discouraged. I've been rejected a number of times. It never feels good, but I've always felt like there's purpose behind every experience. And, it may not have been the right job for you anyways. I've always felt like that myself, that if something didn't work out, if I did everything right and it still didn't work out, it probably wasn't the right job. And I'll say that to be gracious, at the end of the process, because you never know what can change. In my first job in the industry with Applied, I got turned down. I left that part out, but I got turned down. I made it all the way to the final. I was up against a 20-year veteran. I impressed them so much that they remembered me. And I thanked the manager. I said, if anything changes, I'm very appreciative you brought me this far, and love to stay in touch. And guess what happened? He called me back 3 months later. The guy they hired, he blew it in training. He screwed up. He called me and said, we would love to give you an opportunity. And I took it. That happened to me 29 years ago, and I can talk about it today. So here's my offer to you. This is what I want to offer you today. A lot of times when you're trying to break into something, it's like, you hear the expression, it's who you know. and here's the thing, you got to ask around, but guess what? Today, you have met somebody that you now know. You've met me, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help you. I really am. So I will tell you, I have helped dozens and dozens of people over the years land jobs in this business through recommendations, through helping get started as ASRs, or even clinicals. So I'm going to offer you the same thing. I mean, if you are seriously committed, not if you're interested, but if you're seriously committed, shoot me an email and, let's connect on LinkedIn. Tell me about your background and what you're doing, and I might be able to kind of send you in a good direction or give you a little bit of insight. And I'm only going to ask you for one thing in return. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and pass it along to somebody that you might know that could really use this. And if you're a parent and you have a kid in college and they're kind of interested in this, pass it on to your son or daughter, because it's an amazing business to be in and an industry to break into. And if I can help you, I would love to do that. Hey everybody, before I go, I want to make sure that you're aware of something really important, because at the end of every single one of these videos, whether it's this video today about breaking into the medical device industry or any of the other videos that I've been doing about specific assets, I put together a summary sheet at the very end, and I break the video content down into about 5 segments that are key points. And it's basically like a note sheet that you would take during our talk today, but I go ahead and do it for you, that are all the key things that you want to pay attention to, everything from the purpose to potential blockers to a summary at the very end. And I give you basically this all in the form of a PDF sheet. You could take a screenshot of it, and it's really something that's really helpful, and I want to make sure that you don't miss it. So until next time, this has been Matthew Lawrence Scigousky. I'll see you.